duplexes or multi-unit family, and that would allow to have, a duplex or a fourplex on some of those parcels to allow some more housing there. And then on the perimeter of this parcel, have the rest of it be a half acre or a 20,000 square foot zone, which is roughly a half acre. And that would allow them to utilize the rest of their of the property, allow for a little bit larger parcels. Most of these parcels are a lot larger than a half acre. Some of them would be the half acre, but that gives them some flexibility to mix and match some of the development in there to provide for some more housing, and then also single family houses on this particular zone. When we advertised for the zone change, this parcel over here that's 02-0147 was included in the public hearing. Working with Blackhawk and the Planning Commission, this one is very difficult to access with the railroad tracks around it. So this one, the Planning Commission gave a negative recommendation to have a zone change on for this particular parcel.
I think it's important to note also that the lines that you see as what the parcels may show today could change. This is not subdivision approval. These lots and these lines are not final lot lines. If something is approved today, it would be that in those areas they would be allowed to do whatever is recommended as the zone.
And we asked Blackhawk to give us a general layout so we could have an understanding of what they wanted to do. And so they honored our request and said, hey, here's an idea of how it may lay out. And they identified areas that were buildable, areas that were flat enough to build homes. And so they identified those, said, this is why we want to do what we have. There are some very difficult areas with washes and slopes that they have to deal with. And some of those lots only have a small footprint to potentially put a home. So they laid it out the best they could conceptually. We know the topography and some of the other areas of the local conditions may dictate where actual lots are built. So these lots may change because of the ground that they run into.
Any other questions or thoughts?
No, and I think we've all been up there on this property. We've seen it. There's going to be some challenges, without a doubt. I think this is a good starting point. And one thing too is this is just the zoning. It's not, as Todd could maybe elaborate on, once that first house is approved, there's a whole lot of infrastructure that needs to be placed.
Yeah. So when the subdivisions come in, we have three components: a conceptual, a preliminary, and a final approval. So they'll have to go through all three steps. When they come in for a concept, they'll have a lot layout that will be more definite, that they'll be able to say, this is how we really want to do it. They'll have to do additional engineering. In the preliminary stage, they're going to have to figure out how all the roads are going to meet all of our slopes, get all the water there, all the sewer, power, gas. Everything is going to have to be able to be demonstrated that it will work. So they'll have to lay all that out. The hydrology, they won't be able to impact any other property owners. They have to hold the pre-development flows. So any increase of runoff will have to be mitigated. So they'll have to be detention or retention basin, depending on where it's at, to mitigate all of that. All of the infrastructure that they put in, they'll have to bond for. The county requires 125% bond. So once we get the engineer estimates and they say this area is going to cost us X figure, they'll have to bond for 125% of that project to move forward. So that will all be reviewed. We have our road standards that they'll have to meet all of our subdivision standards that they'll have to meet in order to move forward. So if they don't meet the standards, we can't approve the subdivision.
I'd like to say just a couple of things in regards to this helper area. You know, on February 4th, we had the public hearing, and since that time,
January 4th.
January 4th, sorry, thank you. We have received input for this helper area as well as the Spring Glen parcels, and up in the Kenilworth area as well. And there's concerns that have been raised at the helper area. The biggest concern really is folks don't want anything new in helper. They don't want any new development. There's not been too many emails or phone calls in regards to the helper area, but we're aware that Helper City, the elected officials, the message from them is they need some new housing there. And so the need for growth is real. If we don't address it as a county and as cities today, we're going to have problems in the future. You know, saying no to new development is really not an option. And so that's really what I've got to say about the helper area. The other area there in Spring Glen, I think the biggest concerns in there is that, you know, people in that area just don't want growth. And we have a property owner who owns that property, and many of you have expressed that you've been using that property forever for hiking and ATV riding and the scenery that you see out your windows, and you don't want that to change, but that's really not an option either. Property owners have rights, and the only control in many cases that we have as property owners is the property we own. So, and there's concerns about access. Those will have to be addressed.
Yeah.
I think there's some concerns that the road needs to be much larger and wider to get in there, but depending on how many lots actually access out through the Spring Glen area, it may be just a handful of lots that wouldn't really impact roads or things like that to a degree that would raise too big of concerns. Half of this project for the Spring Glen area would access from the helper side, and part of it would come in from Spring Glen. You know, and I think for all of you, most of you here, we've spent time with, either face-to-face or on the phone or through emails. And a lot of time since January 4th working on this, a lot of time, and thought through it very, very close and carefully. So I think as we make decisions tonight, I want you to know that I've tried to put myself in your shoes, every one of you, including Blackhawk. And for me, I've not had any personal feelings towards it, other than as a county commissioner and having to make a decision tonight. And so we're trying to do the best thing for the county.
If I could too, I don't want to say this too loud because Blackhawk will hear, but this is not the only development in Carbon County. There are 12 others. So growth is coming our way, whether we like it or not. We can be, you know, the cave people, as they say, the citizens against virtually everything, but it's coming. The state has done studies showing that different parts are going to grow. They show that Washington County is going to triple in size by 2060. Utah County will be one of the largest counties in the state, and they predict that Carbon County is going to grow by 11,000, which currently we're about 21,000. So heard today Salem City over there by Payson, they're approving a subdivision for 1,500 homes, 1,500 doors, one subdivision. The state of Utah typically has anywhere from 24 to 25,000 homes available for sale. There's less than 1,800 right now through the whole state. When Larry and I got in office, there were 270 homes available for sale. Right now, there's less than 17. We have developments, expansions, places like in Schofield. They're talking, Aspen Cove, which we all know, but there's also a business retreat going up in Schofield. There's 2 housing developments being planned in East Carbon. There's one in North Price just got approved, 77 homes going in. D.R. Horton was looking for a 64-home development. Ellis Pierce has got his 64-home going. Across the street from him's another one that they're proposing to develop. We've got some folks from Helper that want to develop a 200-home project. And further south in Price, there's another housing development being talked about. There's housing developments just throughout this whole area. Helper, as we see, it's interesting that some of the emails that we got talked about the concern about others coming into this community, that we didn't want to see others moving into this area because they'll ruin what we have. But you look at Helper, and who has changed Helper? Is it the residents? Sure, they did some, without a doubt. But who has really made an impact on Helper? And that place is amazing. They need some more tax base because they're growing. They would like to grow. They've got a Maverick gas station that's going to be moving in. There's talk about a truck stop being moved in across from the Carbon Emery RV. So whether we like it or not, there's a lot of growth that's being looked at in Carbon County. Our job with the planning and zoning is to make this sure that this development happens in a right way. Because decisions that we make now are going to affect things to, 10, 20, 30 years down the road. We can say and stamp our feet all we want, we don't want to see development. I was even accused by somebody that I didn't know what it was like to have development around me. And so I went and looked, and when my wife and I built our house back in 1997, we had 83 homes built around us. And out of all of that, we got a retention pond in our backyard to capture all the flood water. So I kind of know what it's like. We can be against this growth, or we can embrace this growth and do it the right way and come together as a community. Is it going to affect us in certain ways that we're not accustomed to? The views, the wildlife? Sure. I got more deer in my front yard last year than I've ever had with all these houses being built. So, it is what it is. We as commission have to look at what everybody's rights and interests are. We have to balance this out. There was talk with certain groups that they're going to sue the county for approving this. Well, the landowners could sue us for not approving it. So that really has no merit. We have right within the county code. And this has not been a pushover. This has been a long, drawn-out thing. As Commissioner Jensen said, we have spent a lot of time. See some familiar faces here that we had, some sit-down conversations. Some of you have seen us on your property, kind of looking around and speculating at how would this development affect these neighbors. Because, again, we've lived it. We've all seen growth here. But you think of 11,000 or 50% more people in this area, we've got to do it correctly.
I might mention that in the general concern that's been brought up quite a few times is the roads, access to the State Highway 6 in particular. Utah Department of Transportation will require the Black Hawk to do a study that will estimate the impact on all of the intersections that you've identified as concerns. I know that presently I have a meeting lined up with a contractor who has been hired to do a highway study for UDOT in the area between Martin and the Carbonville Road turnoff. So UDOT is already looking at that area closely, and this will be added in to their projections that would help them determine what the best thing would be for those intersections that are tough to get out on.
And if I could, Commissioner Jensen, too, UDOT, because of Maverick, they're going to do a road study there as well, right there on Highway 10, or Highway 6, excuse me. But they already have in motion, too, the intersections at Spring Glen and the golf course and the turnoff at Carbonville. So those are potential sites that they're already looking at, even before Blackhawk purchased the property, Blackhawk Ranch. So we've tried to consider all the different angles. There was another thing, too, as well as students. We don't have enough school room for more students in this area. Back in 1994, we actually had 1,500 more students than we do now. The other thing is, if we get more students, that's how the districts get money. Per pupil, they get paid. The county as well is at 55% of the tax
54.
goes to 54 goes to the school district as well. So more houses in here brings in more revenue for the schools, more students, more money for the schools. Again, we've tried to look at all the different angles of this, and we spent a lot of time and talked to a lot of folks. So, we're trying to balance this. We're not here to make everybody happy. We're just trying to do the right thing, and again, keep it fair for both sides.
Todd, do you have anything to add?
Nope.
Okay, and as you can tell, from what was proposed as R4 8,000, there's been a lot of change, adding 1 acre zones, half-acre zones, and a little bit of the R4 8,000. If depending on what's approved, it could be this, it could be whatever the commission feels is appropriate. I'll entertain a motion unless we have further discussion.
I don't have anything.
I don't either. I'll make a motion for the Spring Glen parcels. I make a motion we approve the zone change for parcel 02-353-000 to rural residential 1 acre zones. And if you could highlight that area, please.
So this is parcel 020353, and for the 1 acre zone.
So this area is on the north side of Spring Glen. It includes what I think people up there call Tank Hill. So there's some homes that would go on top of there. So this means that all of those homes would be, or those lots would be required to be 1 acre or larger.
Correct.
The second part of my motion is to approve the zone change for parcel 02-431-000. And Todd, that's the darker area there, is that correct?
Yes.
To residential 1-20,000 square feet zone for concept lots numbers 1 through 21. According to sheet 1.1 dated January 31st of 2022 that we received from Blackhawk, and the remainder of parcel 2-0431-0000 to be zoned R-4-8,000 square feet.
So that's just the half acre zone on the outside, essentially, and the interior being R4 8,000, so that they will have some room to do some more multifamily housing.
And Commissioners, part of your motion, would you like to include the island portion as well, since we're kind of in that
thanks
area?
for the reminder. So the other thing with this request was that originally the request was that this island inside the railroad track loop be zone changed, and I move to deny the zone change for parcel 02-147-0000.
I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Motion is approved. Item number 12 on the agenda, consideration and possible adoption of ordinance number 556, a change to the Carbon County zoning district map from mining and grazing zone to the R-1-8000 zone located on parcels 2-430 and 2-432 and 2-433 and 2-439 and 2-499 in Kenilworth for Blackhawk Ranch.
So this agenda item is for the areas around Eagle Cliff and around Kenilworth. The public hearing and what was advertised was the R-1-8000 zone. The Planning Commission wasn't comfortable doing a blanket R-1-8000 zone for that entire area. They felt that was inappropriate to do. So the Planning Commission gave a negative recommendation to do an R-1-8000 square foot zone for all of those. Blackhawk has given us more information when they went through the public hearing and provided an update of some possible lot layouts for that area. All of these around here would be at least an acre. These ones here on the northwest, kind of northwest side, those are all significantly larger than an acre. These ones along here also are larger than an acre. And then the south of the Highway 157, majority of them are half acre. They do have some larger lots down here on the south side, but the majority of those ones are half acre to allow for some density, have it on the opposite side of the highway from Eagle Cliff where the larger lots are, and have the larger lots be on the north side of the highway for this particular area. Around Kenilworth, south of Kenilworth, you can see they're all at least an acre. Most of them, there's a lot of them that are larger than an acre. So around the south, they're at least an acre. And then north of Kenilworth, all these ones up and around Kenilworth are at least a half acre, and there are some that are larger than a half acre. The zoning for Kenilworth itself is an R-1-8000, so the lots in Kenilworth are 8,000 square feet from the old coal mine. That's what they're zoned. All of this will be significantly larger than the lots that exist in Kenilworth, what they've proposed. We mentioned the water with it. I'll just note that with it, they'll have to put in another water tank with the feasibility study. They've identified that there'll have to be another water tank installed, so nobody's water pressure will be impacted. They can't impact the existing water pressure, so they'll have to put in new water lines for everything that's there and not take away from that. So they'll have developed and then have the capacity to meet fire flow and meet all the residential use for a water system. And so they've done those preliminary estimates and have those numbers from Jones and DeMille of the size of the tank, where the lines and how they need to be.
Any discussion on these parcels?
I would just like to say that we as a commission had visited a lot with the folks that live in the Eagle Cliff and that HOA. They have expressed to us that they wanted to keep kind of a buffer around between the new development, and there was concerns that way that they didn't want to see 1 acre lots and have multiple homes kind of on the edges of their land, which is understandable. I appreciate that. I think the areas here in the darker green are more of a, are those the 2.5?
Yeah, that's listening to individuals from Kenilworth. I asked our GIS department to kind of meet the 2.5 acres. So all of these through this darker green would all meet at least a 2.5 acre lot. So I asked them to identify that so we can see where that potential buffer of 2.5 acre zone would be.
And, excuse me, and some of these houses too some of these are going to be pretty tough, if impossible, to develop. Right there next to Eagle Cliff, yeah, they're probably pretty good to develop on some of them, but there are some challenges as well. And I think there's been a compromise from Eagle Cliff to kind of change, or excuse me, from the Blackhawk Ranch folks to kind of change their initial request to kind of find some middle ground, if you will, to go rather than 5 acre to possibly 2.5 acres. So I think that's a good gesture, goodwill gesture.
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Martinez on, we're looking at this through everybody's perspective. I know the concerns of some of the quality of life issues that are important to you folks up there, but the of life differs from people to people, and I think one of the things I'd just like to note is that when Mel Coonrod subdivided Eagle Cliff, there were reasons at the time for the size of those lots, and you folks have purchased those now, but there's nothing guaranteeing any of us in the county anywhere. Things next to us will stay the same. And so this is, I feel bad, but on the same token, I've had the same thing happen around me. So there's a compromise that's been offered by Blackhawk, which I appreciate, and also on the part of most of the residents up there that you're willing to do some compromise. So I think this buffer of 2.5 acres is in my mind is adequate, and the rest of that area, I think the 1 acre size of lots on the north side of the road is adequate, and on the south side of the road, half-acre lot. Kenilworth area, we have the 1 acre area on the south part would be half-acre, and I'm comfortable with those as well.
When we had the public hearing, this parcel 02-0499 was advertised also